Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Mitchell with FF Real Talk, and we're now through 6 weeks of the fantasy season, and it's a lot of things that's going well for some of us, and a lot of things that's going awry for some of us. Uh, just like every season, though, it's always a lot that'll catch you off guard and a lot that makes things interesting. But I'm enjoying the season so far. Several players that are breaking out that we had no idea would, and several players that are busting that we had no idea would. So that's what makes fantasy fun. That's what makes it interesting, and that's what keeps us hungry and makes us know that any given week you can win or lose for whatever reason. So that's why we play the game, just to see what happens. That's probably the most fun about the whole thing. But anyway, before I get started, I do want to thank all of you guys who listen, and there's been a number of the new listeners that have thanked me and told me, they listen to my stuff every week and that they appreciate it and that they just found out about me. That always makes me feel good to know that the word is spreading and that you appreciate it that well. So I do want to give y'all a shout before I get started. But without further ado, we got to get right into the week 7 ads. And number one should be no question about it, because it should be everyone's number one target of the week, and that's Cameron Meredith. There's no need to ask if this is a fluke anymore. This is now 2 straight weeks of 100+ yards. And it's looking like his rapport with Hoyer is not to be denied. And this is the main thing about it that's the most amazing to me. You always hear me talk about targets being anything 9 or more being better. What's amazing about Meredith is he's averaging 10 catches over the last 2 weeks, not targets, catches. He had 9 the week before and 11 this past week. That is insane. That's second round value, and you got him off the waiver, and you haven't gotten him off the waiver because he's still only 30-something% owned. Get him now. Don't ask about it. Don't debate it. Don't wonder about it. Brian Hoyer is going to be the quarterback for this team the rest of the season. And his rapport with Cameron Meredith is second to none in terms of their connection. Get him now. Number 2 ad is Michael Thomas. I'm surprised to see that he was only 59% owned, knowing my threshold is 60. He's proven to be Drew Brees' most reliable and consistent week-to-week target, because Brees is known to spread it around, being that he has Cooks, being that he has Snead and Fleener and all of that. Double-digit fantasy points in the last 3 weeks. And when fantasy is based, in my opinion, fantasy, if you can get 10 or more points out of every position, not in talking about quarterback needs to be 17 or better in my book. But when you get 10 out of everything, including the average of 10 out of everything, even including kicker and defense, you're generally going to win every week. Somebody's not going to make 10, so when somebody makes over 10, it makes up for the guy that doesn't. That's just a strategical game theory I've done for many years. I want the players I have to get 10 or more fantasy points, and Michael Thomas is putting up that every week. Those are the types of guys that you want in your lineups. So he's going to be past the threshold after this week. So this is the last chance to get him. The last time he's going to be on this video. Number 3, James White. Like I said last week, my buying him is my Mr. Irrelevant last pick in my fantasy draft in just about all my leagues wasn't for his production from week 1 through 4. It had nothing to do with that. It was for his production once Brady got back. And you see it already. The rise and ascension of James White and the decline and downfall of LeGarrette Blount. It never fails. Blount is more active when the running game is more dependable. And the Pats running game is not built for power runners. It's built for runners that catch. That's why Dion Lewis was so big. And James White, not as talented as Lewis, but talented in his own right. He is assuming that role, and it's only going to get better. That's a guy that needs to be owned from here out. Number 4, Ajayi. But it looks like this past week, he might have straight up outright won the job that he was fighting for in the preseason. He ran into the wall of his own confidence, getting the best of his own, he becoming his own worst enemy. As soon as they signed Arian Foster, his draft stock went down and his confidence went down right along with it. But it never fails that Arian Foster is going to get hurt, and Ajayi picked his spots where he did a little something here, a little something there to keep him relevant. But this past weekend, you can't argue with 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. There won't be any questions anymore. This is why he was so high on draft boards in July, early in the preseason. Well, not even preseason, football hadn't started, but early in the in the offseason, July. This is why he was one of those top 35 ranked running backs at the time, but then slid once Arian Foster got involved. It should be settled now. He's available in a lot of leagues, and we all have running back issues. Get him ASAP. No more needing to question it. Number 5, Marcus Mariota. No one ever asked questions about his talent. He has it in abundance. But he's about as streaky as a basketball player like J.R. Smith and stuff like that, where he'll have these great runs of doing good work, and then he'll have these terrible runs that make you look, is he a professional quarterback? All Mariota ever needs is favorable matchups. And he's shown that he's feasted over it on the past few weeks. And now, going forward, the next 3 weeks are very favorable matchups, 2 of which being at home. That's what you need when you want to get that edge. And if you're in the 2-4 or 3-3 spots in your standings, you need somebody who's going to take you over in given matchups. And players like this that have good matchups might be better matchup-wise than your starting quarterback. And you got, this runs parallel and contrary to my usual thing of talent over matchups. But when you're 2-4 or 3-3, you're on that position where you're trying to you're playing with house money. You got to throw caution to the wind and just take a flyer that might overproduce and just hit something sky high. Don't do nothing stupid, but sometimes you just need something to change things and shake things up just to give you a chance because you got nothing to lose. Not a 3-3 guy, you don't necessarily want to do it, but if you're 2-4 and you might have a quarterback that you drafted higher that's got a bad matchup, Mariota might be somebody you want to start. Number 6, Brian Hoyer. Numbers never lie, man. 4 straight games of 300 or more passing yards. That's better than most, if not all, quarterbacks in that span. And it's time to give this guy the respect and the credit he deserves. And I'm not talking about the credit of him being just better than Jay Cutler. That goes without saying. This guy is a suitable backup for fantasy, and he's even a matchup start, just like I mentioned with Marcus Mariota. Look at his schedule. I didn't look at his schedule for the next few weeks or whatever before I did this video, so I don't know who he's facing. But if he's got a favorable matchup, might be better than your starter, especially if you're on the cusp of that leaning side of like 2-4. You never know. Number 7 is Hunter Henry. He's proven to be perfectly fine with or without Antonio Gates. That was the big hang-up with him. We knew with Gates out, his value is clear cut, especially with Keenan Allen gone. But Gates has been back, and this dude has done just as well regardless. He's got a number of straight games of 12 or more fantasy points, the last 3 games rather, all of which with a touchdown. And he has stepped into the role of assuming more responsibility and been the best benefactor of Keenan Allen going out. He's the most consistent, he's their red zone target, and he's a big dude. And it's about time. Gates don't have it no more. Though he's going to the Hall of Fame, one of the best tight ends, arguably the best tight end of all time, one of. but he can't hack it the way things need to be to move fast these days. And Hunter Henry's gonna get to the point, and this is what teams do. When they see a guy asserting his abilities, they're gonna ride him, and that's what I expect to happen with Henry going forward. Everybody has tight end issues. All of us are struggling with tight end for the most part. This is a guy that no longer needs to be on waiver wires. Grab him. Number 8, Charles Clay, another tight end. This is a guy I've been a fan of ever since his days in Miami. His numbers aren't screaming at you, but his targets and catch consistency does. And with Tyrod out of his number one weapon with Sammy Watkins, he's going to need guys to step up. And Robert Woods ain't the one. Gillislee ain't the one. It's got to come from somebody more dependable and a big target, and that's a guy like Charles Clay, especially in the red zone. So keep an eye. If you got tight end deficiency, just like I said, and you can't get Hunter Henry, this is a guy you definitely want to target. Number 9, Kenny Britt. This is a crazy game, man. 7 catches, 136 yards on 8 targets with 2 touchdowns. Y'all remember how Kenny Britt's talent was years ago, and this is one of those things where the last 2 games before that, he had 75 or more yards. He's quietly having that season we've been wanting him to have for years, since he was really in that. We were expecting him to be the next guy up thing with that, like that, in that Mike Wallace thing where he was just this big deal, and then all of a sudden he started to slide down. Kenny Britt did the same thing. Now, with Case Keenum showing that he's not absolutely terrible, and with Tavon Austin being so iffy, Kenny Britt is asserting himself. And though you don't need to immediately pick him up in 10-team or less leagues, anybody in deep league, like with 12 or 14 teams, this is a guy you definitely want to have. And number 10, Torrey Smith. A lot of people, especially with his performances recently, was expecting Jeremy Curley to be the number 1 benefactor of the San Francisco's whatever they were going to get, because they were so bad. Jeremy Curley's rapport was with Blaine Gabbert, and Gabbert isn't going to be playing anytime soon. Colin Kaepernick's got to really funk up the joint to lose the job, and he didn't do enough. He lost the game, but he didn't do enough to lose the job this weekend. And Torrey Smith and him have had rapport since last year. That's going to be the guy that's going to ascend if Kaepernick does become even a little bit of who he was. Expect Torrey Smith to go where Kaepernick goes. If he goes up, Smith's going to go up. So I expect Kaepernick to be serviceable or better. So do I expect Torrey Smith. And with his talent, he's somebody you want to keep an eye on. And that's the end of the list. But right before I started recording the video, I got a bit of news that's breaking. And this is kind of going to shake some things up and make some quick possibilities for ads. Eddie Lacy is going to be out this week, and it looks like he's going to be out weeks beyond. So anybody who's been watching the news knows that they recently acquired Nile Davis. And they saw last week that Ty Montgomery ran for 3 carries, and Randall Cobb got a few carries too. This makes Nile Davis and Ty Montgomery quick adds if you're deficient at running back. And with somebody like Montgomery, who's a wide receiver and also good carries, that is one of those bonus positions. So of these two, him and Nile Davis, I obviously pick up Ty Montgomery. So that's another guy you want to target. And in my opinion, I would probably put Montgomery after Hunter Henry over Kenny Britt and Torrey Smith at this point, because the Green Bay Packers need something to get them out of this funk. I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do, because the relax thing that he said last year or whatever, that ain't what's up this year, because that dude is something up with Green Bay. But grab Ty Montgomery. That's somebody you might want to check out. But anyway, that's the end of the video. If you got any questions, you know what to do. Hit me up on Twitter. It's always easier. I know a lot of you guys ask questions in the comments below. Feel free to do so. When I'm able to get to them, I'll answer them the best as I can. But the easiest and best way to reach me is through Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter, I hear a lot of you say, I don't have it. It's not hard to get one. There's a lot of people that don't use Twitter much but to ask for fantasy things. Add one just to follow a few of your fantasy guys and follow me. And you can ask me there. Your questions will get answered sooner and faster. But anyway, that's it for the video. Good luck in week 7. I hope you've enjoyed the fantasy season thus far. It's going to get even more interesting. The teams are starting to round out in your league. You're starting to know who the better guys are and who really needs to make a push if you got a chance for your playoff run. It's starting to show its face. If you want to keep that chance up and you're 2 and 4 or better, try to make some of these moves. All right, y'all have a good one.